turn off my camera.
All right. So the first thing I wanted to ask everybody is, what is your experience with compressors like? Where is everybody kind of sitting at?
Zero.
Okay,
Basics.
basics. Okay,
Yeah, you
so basically just like the controls, right?
um, yeah, essentially. Even just like
Okay,
I haven't even looked at them in a while.
okay, no worries. So let me pull up my notes. So there's a lot of different kinds of compressors, and they all have like unique characteristics. And it's one of those things like I can explain it to you, but you're not really gonna understand until you hear it. You got to just kind of play around with these kind of compressors, and then the more you feel them out, the more you'll know where to put them in certain for certain applications. Like you might choose a FET compressor over a VCA for a vocal because you want that specific FET sound. So it's certain things like that. So I'm just going to briefly kind of go through the different types of compressors, and then I'll give you an example of one of those types as well. So the first one's optical compressors. They are light dependent, so it's actually very interesting. They use light to compress the signal. Um, it doesn't really matter how it works. You don't really need to know that. But an example of an optical compressor is LA2A. Most of the time, these are like kind of a fixed attack, fixed release compressors, meaning that you cannot. It's already predetermined by the compressor what the attack and release settings are. They're very smooth on vocals, and they can be very punchy as well. Like the CL1B is a very punchy optical compressor. That's why it's like the number one compressor for rap vocals. It's also like $6,000. Um, that's okay. So the next
Oh,
the
that's it.
next one is what's that?
Oh, that's it. It's only 6,000.
Yeah, only 6K, bro. Only six. The next type is VCA. This type is so. If how many of you use Ableton here?
Yeah.
Clearly,
Okay.
man.
Okay, so you know
Me too.
the glue compressor in Ableton, right?
Hmm.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's a VCA. That's modeled after the SSL bus compressor. So you guys would probably be familiar with that kind of sound. But typically, whenever you see compressors that have like stepped attack and release, this isn't true of all VCA. A lot of like digital ones are like this, but hardware, it's always stepped. It'd be like zero point 0.1 milliseconds, zero point 0.3, 0.5, 137, something like that. So where you only really can select those attacks, and then usually they have an auto release as well. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much a VCA. You guys are pretty familiar with that if you use that glue compressor. They're great for like compressing buses and things like that, like the master mix, things like that. FET compressors, these are just amazing on vocals. They're kind of a love hate. People either love them or they hate them. I love them personally. They're very like gives you a very straightforward, very aggressive compression. Yeah, Mike.
You just say after the VC compressor, what was the other two?
So it's optical,
Optical.
VCA, and then now we're on FET. FET is field effect transistor. Again,
How you spell
it's FET.
it? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm not here to go through like the engineering of a compressor. I'm just kind of briefly go over the different types, and again, you guys got to just kind of fuck around with them. Um, so FETs are amazing on vocals. I use them on pretty much every vocal. A common example, probably the most popular example of a FET compressor is the Universal Audio 1176. I'm pretty sure every single DAW has like a stock version of the 1176. Um, this again, amazing for vocals. It's a very aggressive. It's a very aggressive compressor. It's great on kicks, snares, things like that. Anything that you want to really grab and bring forward in the mix. Amazing for that. Then there's tube compressors. They obviously use a tube to compress at the gain stage. Um, Tube compressors they're pretty warm and natural. I don't use a lot of tube compressors personally, but an example is the Fairchild 670. I was never really a fan of those. I think those are also like a love hate type thing. People either love those or they hate them. I'm not a big fan. Then the next is digital compressors. These are like plug-in, not plug-in compressors that are not modeled after hardware. So like R comp from Waves is just a digital compressor. Then there's obviously multi-band compressors. Those just you can compress each frequency band differently. And this is something I think a lot of people, it seems obvious, but I think a lot of people don't know it. But a de-esser is a compressor. All a de-esser is a compressor set to the high frequencies, fast attack, fast release, highest possible ratio. So do with that what you will, because that is also a compressor. You could it doesn't just, it's not just for taming S's. Anything that has like a lot of nasty high end stuff, you can try a de-esser. Sometimes it's the right call. You got a nasty hi hat, throw a de-esser on it. You'll clean it up. So that's pretty much it for like the different types. Like I said, I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on that specifically. I more so wanted to show you how to use them musically. So I'm going to pull up actually a track by Levi, and I'll show you an example on a mix. Because I know a lot of people in here do dance music, so I wanted to demonstrate that. 1 second.
Beautiful.
Not that screen, this screen. There we go. Okay. Well, it's great that he sent me something with a limiter on.
Proactive about it.
Levi, look at this. Crusher. I was like, hey, take everything off the master. But it's fine. I can still demonstrate it here. I probably should have checked ahead of time. I just assumed
It's fine.
Levi was competent.
A limiter is, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. Let me try to find a place that's not as like crushed. Okay. So right now, to me, this kind of feels stiff. Like it doesn't feel like it moves, you know. So I love to use compressors for that specific reason, because you can really add a lot of attack. Mike, you said you didn't know like the attack and release and all that. You didn't really understand those settings. Do you want me to go through that real quick?
I get what you probably about that. Just kind of.
Well, I mean, it won't take that long. I'll just go through it for everybody. I'll just use the stock Pro Tools compressor.
For sure, go through it.
Okay.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think it is too. So the main settings on a compressor is threshold, ratio, attack, and release. Okay, the threshold controls the level. Once the signal passes this threshold, the compression will start. Okay, the knee is the bend. So see, it's kind of like a sharp bend. If you increase the knee, so it kind of smooths out.
We
You know,
don't
soft-
we don't see what you're doing.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, so okay, this does not get
plug-in.
wrapped in. That's
Yeah.
weird. Okay, what about? That's so weird. I thought it did. I thought it
Yeah,
got
it's
wrapped in.
strange because it's a separate window. You might be capturing the application rather than a window. You could change.
Yeah, let
sharing
me
the-
change to screen. Yeah, let me change.
You said the threshold does what now? Control.
One
the
Yeah, he'll
level
show you.
of
He'll
the-
show you.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just gonna do my entire screen. Okay, can you see this now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay.
Gotcha.
So we have the main settings are attack, release, ratio, and threshold. Okay. So the threshold, see that this orange line right here? That's the visual representation of the threshold. Once the signal passes the threshold, that's when compression starts. Okay, so it won't, if the signal is only down here, see, it's not doing anything until it passes that threshold. So the more I increase it, the more it'll compress.
Can you explain what that dot is? I know it is, but for
So that dot is that's the representation of the signal, the volume of the signal. So once it passes a certain volume, which is the threshold,
it's the
then the
peak,
compression will start.
right?
Yeah, it's the peak.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's the peak. So the threshold is kind of like it's almost like the amount of compression. It's how how tight you bring it down. Then we have attack. Attack is how fast after the signal passes the threshold, the compressor will grab it. So if you have it fastest, it's going to be immediate. As soon As soon as it passes, the compressor is going to grab it, right? That you can eliminate peaks and all kinds of things with that. But for vocals specifically, you typically want a slower attack because you want to allow some of the things through. Release is probably the single most important setting on here. This is the one that you really want to spend time with and listen to. You want the compressors to breathe with the music, right? So a big thing I've seen, like people you do in Ableton, is with the glue compressor, right? I'll bring up my version of that. It's the exact same compressor. What I've seen a lot of people do is they'll slam it, keep it on auto, and they'll be doing like tons of compression, right? But it's not breathing with the music. They're not timing the release. Watch what happens when
So,
I
real quick,
bring the release
JLP,
down. Yeah.
we can't hear it while you're streaming your window. It has to be the application. So it's gonna be a hybrid of
Fucking
switching back and
goddamn.
forth. I know.
Okay.
I know.
Son of a bitch. Okay.
Just want to let you know.
That's so stupid.
I know.
Okay. All right. There we go.
You good, yeah?
That's good. All right. So what I see a lot of people do with the glue compressor in Ableton is they slam it. I've seen this on Levi's tracks. I don't mean to call them out, but I think people misunderstand that term glue. So basically, in these settings, this is what I've seen. Like Chris specifically do this as well. And I showed Chris this, and it like blew his mind. But anyway, so watch what happens when I pull the release down. Right, watch the music start to breathe all of a sudden.
Are you talking about the track pumping for compression? Is that what you're talking about?
It might be a little subtle. I'm on headphones, so I can't really hear it on my mains, but you kind of get the point. Like all of a sudden, the music breathes. It doesn't feel like it's being gripped and held. You want the dynamics. You want the compressor to let go between those hits, between those dynamics. You don't want to just grab it and then it holds. That release is most important. You want to time it musically. Think about like when you time your reverb tails and things like that. You want to time it musically so it ends when it's supposed to end. It doesn't just carry on forever, right? It's the same thing with compressors. You want the release is the most important part, honestly. Attack is great, but release is really where it becomes musical.
Yeah, it's very tight for like one shots is like the best place for a glue compressor, so to speak. Right?
Yeah, or like a bus, or the master mix. Anything. Yeah, you can even use it on vocals. Although I haven't really seen a bunch. I mean, again, you can use anything on anything, whatever the fuck you want to do. It's up to
exactly.
You. Do whatever you want to do. But yeah, as soon as I bring the release down, it starts moving, it starts pumping again. That's again, listen to the release. That's the most important setting on the compressor. Is there any questions so far?
Yeah, like what's a good example to when using like a short release or like a slow release? Like would you use like
That's actually great. That's a great question. So if you want to use a long release, think about if you want to bring up the end of something, right? So let's say you have a piano and it's got a big transient, but the sustain is weak, right? You can use a slow release to hold that sustain up.
And bring up the tail.
Yes, you bring up the tail. So sometimes it's good on 808s too. Like, actually, I have an example of an 808 I can show you guys. This will be perfect, actually. This is a great question, Chris, because that's exactly what this is. Yeah, 2 seconds. This is like a kind of a big session, so it might take a second.
Really unprofessional. I'll be honest. Really unprofessional.
Yeah, it is.
I said, do better. Come on.
Scumbag behavior, Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You know what though? You know what I do need tips on?
What?
on not that what do you call it? You know, like OTT when it's expand.
Over the top.
Not like the other compression, upwards pro compression. Is that what
Oh,
you?
yeah,
I
it's
think
the same
OTT.
concept. It's the same concept as compression, just the other way,
I
right? So
don't really.
instead of compressing down, it's actually expansion. So when the signal passes the threshold, it'll lift the signal up louder instead
Yeah,
of making it quieter.
yeah.
So it's kind of the same concepts as compression, just reverse it.
Oh, that's it.
If that
Actually,
makes sense.
That's
oh,
what
that's interesting.
OTT does, isn't it? That's what
Yeah,
OTT does.
that's an
Yeah.
expander. Yeah,
That's
it's like an
okay.
expander and compressor. I don't know, that's a weird plugin,
Yeah.
but that's yeah. It's multi-band, so that's nice.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so I'm not. I don't really want. I will show you that this is a long release, but I don't want to switch back and forth between the different screens. So you're not going to see the compressor, but you will hear it.
You're sharing the. Oh, good.
Okay, you guys all hear that 808, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah.
Okay, so without the compressor, it doesn't get held up. That tail, it doesn't feel fat. It like falls off. They're much fatter that it holds that sustain out and you can like actually like physically see how it drops off, right? So what I'm trying to do is hold it up, and I can actually print this, and then you can like visually see the difference.
Shit, that's cool. Actually, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you just commit,
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
commit, print. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know why in Pro Tools they called it commit when everybody knows it as print.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
it's strange. It's just it's translation between DAWs.
just call it print.
Everyone wants
Everybody
their own
knows it's
special
print.
terms.
Yeah, I know. They all got to be different.
Yeah, exactly.
In Ableton, it's called a resampling. Pretty sure. Yeah, bouncing rendering.
Let me increase the gain a little bit so you can see it a little bit more. Okay, now you can literally see the difference. Like, look at how fat that tail is versus that. That's what I'm doing. So with the attack on this compressor, actually, it's a little bit slow because there's no kick in this song, so the kick is kind of built into the 808. So to get the punch, I wanted the compressor to not grab it right away. So I'm letting that hit come through. So you see the hit doesn't really get affected, just the tail. It grabs after and holds the tail up. So you see, and even right here, like they're still kind of pokey, those transients. You know what I'm saying? So I still get that punch.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that.
So that's the difference, because I felt like the 808 in this song specifically wasn't being held up enough. Because considering there's no kick and it's kind of slow and sparse arrangement, so I wanted to really make it fat. So that's an example of long release times, right? And again, use your ears. I listened to the release time as I pulled up the release time to try to make it. I wanted the compressor to completely let go in between hits. So this hit, I wanted the compressor to recover before it hits the next one. That's kind of how you should try to time it. You want it to hit them all kind of relatively equally, right? So you want it to recover between each hit. You don't want to have it too slow because then it won't recover by the time the next one comes.
Then you get
So you
phasing.
want, yeah, exactly. You want to time it out. So you just use your ears, listen, play with the release, and don't be afraid to go to extreme settings just to hear what it sounds like. What's the slowest? What does that sound like? What's the fastest? What does that sound like? Okay, now find somewhere in the middle. Play with it. Go to the extremes if you have to, because it's useful. You get to really hear what it's doing then.
Yeah, the best way to learn it really is just playing with it and see what fits well with the mix that you are doing at the time.
Yes, that's why I there's not a lot I can really I guess I can't teach you how to hear it. I just want to explain some concepts, and then you guys have to apply it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you get like you just said, you got to go and just mess around with it and tweak it yourself and put the headphones on, really get into it and listen. I can't teach you how to hear. You got to just learn how to hear. I can teach you.
Fix your
I
fucking
can
ears.
Exactly. I can teach you a path to walk down, so you'll hear.
Yeah, you could teach the concepts, but not the actual work.
Yes, that you
Yeah,
have to learn on your own. You just have to do it. Um,
you
now,
have
the
the
other thing I
theory,
want to
now
talk
you need
about,
the practicality.
yes, the other thing I want to talk about, Mike, I wanted to actually address you specifically, and any other vocalists in here. So when it comes to vocals, Mike, if you're doing and like vocals get mixed differently amongst all genres, right? Um, so it really depends on the genre. You just got to listen to a lot of music, use your ears, right? So you wouldn't mix an R&B song, an R&B vocal like you would a hip hop vocal, and you wouldn't mix that like a pop vocal, right? They're all different styles. When it comes to compression on vocals, it's really about layering compression, right? So you don't use just one compressor and make it do all the heavy lifting, right? Excuse me. Split that work between a couple compressors. So let me find a song that I have. Well, I could just use this.
So,
Um, right. So there's multiple compressors on this vocal. Okay.
Mhm.
I have a multi-band compressor. I have. Let me go to the screen. I don't need to play it right now, but I'll just show you what the compressor is. Switch window.
it pops up sometimes.
All right, you guys see this green plugin?
Yeah, it
JLP,
pops
can
up
you do me a
sometimes.
favor real quick since I'm recording this?
Yes.
Can you stop streaming and restream it because it's very blurry right now,
Sure can.
so it's more clear.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
But
It nothing. That's fine. We still get the gist. It's cool.
Okay, bet. Yeah, I wonder it's because it's screen. I wonder that's why it's blurry.
Yeah, it should be fine. I mean, you get the gist. It's no worries.
Yeah. So on this vocals, right? So I have a multi-band, right? And what I'm doing with this is I'm just trying to control the loudest parts, like control the resonances, things like that. Essentially, I'm using this to balance the vocal out. I'm trying not don't let there be too much buildup in certain where like there's a pretty big buildup in this range, so I have a kind of ducking that as it comes in. I'm cutting out some of this nastiness. There's always nastiness up here. If anybody who's tried to mix a vocal knows that between like 6K, 10K, there's something disgusting in there that you got to find and get it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's typically the first thing I do, Mike, and any of the vocalists. Pretty much on every single vocal, it's multi-band compression. That's the first thing I do because I want to balance the signal. I want to balance the frequency ranges as best as I can. Usually hit it with some EQ after that.
okay, I know what EQ is. I heard it.
Yes.
Because I usually take off the lows, like my first EQ before I even compress it. I take off the lows, then I compress it, then before I EQ it, and then compress it.
You could do that too. For me, since I recorded this at my Chicago studio, I have a high pass on my preamp, so this was already yes. But otherwise, yes, you could do that. Again, it just use your ears. If we both get to a good sound, bro, it doesn't really matter how you do it. You know what I'm saying?
No, I didn't know that you got high part. Yeah, because
So okay, well let me tell you then. So if you ever need to high pass something, like if you're recording vocals and you have the option to high pass on the mic, turn that on. It always sounds better before it gets to the digital realm. It sounds better if you can do it in the analog realm still. So if you have a high pass on your mic or your preamp or your interface, anything before it gets to your DAW, great. Use that over like a low pass or a high pass plugin, over a plugin EQ because it will sound better.
Also, I
Say that
think
one more
I
time.
kind of think I should add in as well is for preamp when you're throwing out preamp. A lot of interfaces now have preamps built into the interface, so it'll be more so a
Yes.
console thing that you're working inside of with the preamp. So it's based off of that. If you have an actual like hardware preamp, then that's for sure. But then it's
Yes.
the
See,
same difference.
you guys can see my screen still, right? You can see this console screen, right? So the high pass is right here. So I high pass at the recording stage, so before it gets there. So my low end typically isn't all like I didn't really get a lot of rumble from that recording studio. So I didn't necessarily have to, but yes, if you have a lot of rumble, by all means, fucking get that shit out of there. Again, it's all dependent on. This is not a one size fits all thing. It's really dependent on the quality of the vocal, the sound, everything. it changes. Every single song changes, right? So it's really just about understanding concepts and knowing when to apply them. Cakes, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of bounce off of what you were saying because I was gonna ask if you think, I guess, because I know it's personal preference and all that, but if it's better to like have a compression at the recording or have compression on like at the recording stage versus like adding it on later, or is it better to just do dry and then just add compression on later?
That
I guess you
is
kind of answered the question.
Good
well,
question.
that I mean, really, that is all. Like that does come down to personal preference. I personally don't use a compressor on the way in because I don't want to commit that compressor.
Yeah.
So because I don't have the ability to go back and tweak it once it's printed, so
Right.
that's why I personally don't use it. But if if you got like a loud singer and you really can't gain them down anymore without getting a bad recording, then yeah, you can by all means use compressor just to tame like a couple dB. But you really don't want to do a lot of lifting with that because again, it's going to be printed and you can't change it then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
you want as much drive a signal that you can without hindering the artist, just so that you can
Right.
actually go in post and actually edit the way that it wants to be edited.
yes, and if
And,
like if
'cause-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
sorry, go ahead. No, go
I,
ahead.
I was gonna say so if like let's say the artist wants to hear compression, you could like in Pro Tools, right? I could put it here. That doesn't print it. This is all within this is post recording. Everything I do here is post that recording. So it doesn't matter what the fuck I put on this track, it doesn't get committed anyway. So if they want to hear compression, I'll slap a compressor on like the tracking track. And then they can hear it and then it doesn't get committed. So I don't have to worry about
Right. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And then
Yeah.
also too, because you're with the high pass on the mic. So I have I mean, I guess I would assume it's like the two buttons on the back where it's like a line and the other one is like a little cut and then a line. Sorry.
it. Yes. Does it look like let me pull up my because it'll look like this symbol right here.
Yeah, it's a little blurry.
Oh, true. Let me see if I can
Yeah,
find
it's
this.
basically
Let's
like
see what
a fine curve on the right side.
yes.
Yeah, that okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yes.
And that's why I was
Yes.
like, okay, mind blown because I've always like, hey, don't touch those buttons in the back. But now I'm like, oh, maybe I should.
Oh hell yeah,
Yeah.
touch those. Yeah.
Like
Because so you probably have a pad, and then I would assume, or it could be a polarity switch. But then you definitely have a
So
high
I have
pass
a polarity switch. I
Yeah.
have probably the high pass or whatever, and then I also have one that has the negative. Or
Okay, so you have all three. You have you
Mhm.
have all three. So you can use definitely use the high pass. That way, anything you could do at the mic level is
Mhm.
great. You're not going to miss it. You really won't miss any of that low end. So
Okay.
yeah, you'll get a much cleaner sound going in before it even gets into your DAW. It'll sound cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Any other questions so far?
yeah, why are you such a bitch?
Damn.
That's a great question.
No, man, it sounds good, man. Good info.
Oh,
getting
keep
over
going,
here.
bro. You're doing a fucking amazing job. Keep going.
Does anybody have any specific questions about anything that they would like me to talk about right now?
I'll be honest with you, John.
I mean, I think like more vocal compression, like techniques would be like nice to like go over.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be honest because I'm only on bailout, so a lot of this stuff I don't really get the gist of it. I'm listening, like trying to figure out how to pull it together and stuff like that. But it's just more on my part, so maybe and like I said, you have to learn this more hands on. Then
Yes.
you can't really explain it. So
Yeah. Once you
I'm
start
just kinda
touching this stuff, it starts getting a little easier.
Like I said, I'm recording this for JLP, so it should be on somewhere wherever he's gonna want to post it. So you can always refer back to this video.
okay. Once
Yeah.
I get an FL soon, so maybe I can go back and stuff like that. But
I could give you a private lesson if you want to, Mike.
yeah,
Once you get FL, I could show you some things. I could have you twist the knob so you actually hear it.
okay. I would appreciate that.
That's the
I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, we can do that for sure.
Also, I think I think it's important to note that not to get too caught up with the technical aspects of compression. You know, at the end of the day, it's a tool to implement stylistically. into whatever music you're making. So don't get too in over your head if you're too confused on it.
I
That's
agree.
right.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I could not tell you what any of my attack and release settings are on anything because I'm not paying attention to the numbers. I'm just turning it
Yeah.
until it sounds
Yeah.
where I want it to sound.
No,
So again,
100%.
use your ears, don't use your eyes. That way, like 16 just said, you can implement it in a stylistic way. Don't pay. You don't have to worry so much about the numbers. Don't worry about the numbers. Just
This helps
turn
me
the
out
knobs
so
till it
much.
sounds good.
Yeah, that helps me so much.
That's a
But
good
I would
engineer right
say,
there.
It
Do
doesn't
you
matter.
usually, sorry, do you usually
Go ahead.
use like reference tracks and whatnot too, in order to like kind of
Yes.
figure out what the best way? I mean, because you were saying different genres and what it's like different compression.
Yes. If it's like a genre that I'm not super familiar with, I'll use a reference track. And I do use them a lot anyway because they're just it's
Yeah.
helpful.
Mhm.
But yeah, you don't always have to. I mean, if it's a genre that you're doing all the time, like I did a lot of hip hop in Chicago. Like I didn't really need a reference track, because I know what it's supposed to sound like. I do it all the time. So it's kind of just like if you're unfamiliar with the genre, listen. Go find some stuff and listen to it and get a feel for how it's supposed to sound.
Which
Because sometimes,
I'm
what?
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But for like especially for when you're creating a like if you create a save for a specific chain for an artist, that's fucking beautiful. Yes, it's a great reference point. Don't slap it on just because you're working with the same artist, because a different beat could be different for the same chain on a vocal chain.
100%.
That could fuck things up because it
I
just doesn't
actually
tonally sounds the same.
Right. And well, every recording is different. They may
Yeah,
not be looking at the mic the
exactly.
same way.
The,
Everything,
the
their voice is
temperature
different.
the temperature of the room could be
Yes.
different, and that could fuck it
The
up.
humidity of the
Yeah,
room is different.
yeah,
Like all those factors come in.
yep.
That's why, like, out of you artists in here, you've probably noticed that if you record a verse and a hook and you want to lay down another verse and another day, it doesn't quite sound the same as the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
Sometimes
your
I'm like,
mic
what?
didn't move.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's
exactly.
because
The
what?
positioning of the mic
there's
could
so
really
many
fuck it up too. Yeah.
variables. Yes. That's why mic position is important. But a good rule of thumb is always get all your lead vocals tracked the same day.
Yep.
Try to at least,
Yep.
because background vocals you can record any old time. They're in the background. Who gives a fuck, right? But the lead vocals, that's where you want the consistency. So if you can, try to get all your lead vocals done the same day.
So that's why, like, when I record a song, and sometimes I be I just recorded a song. I know it also has to do something with the key, but it just doesn't sound right to me. It sounds like I know my mic is shitty. Don't remind me, Joe.
No. Even on that mic, you can tell the difference because your voice isn't the same. Your
It
emotions
doesn't
aren't the
matter if you
same.
spent $5,000 on a mic or $30. It's the
Yep.
same principle.
So, like, I'm actually glad because, like, for honest, I always thought it was just like maybe it's just my voice. Maybe I'm not having a good voice day, so I'm just gonna chill out.
Well, probably that's
I mean,
probably what it was. But
yeah.
also, it's a different day. It's a different like it's different. Again, all those variables change day to day.
Yep.
So you could be having a bad voice day. You know what I'm saying?
Possible.
That could be the reason.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's just a variable. You're a human being. You have
Exactly.
you're not a robot. You're not the same every day.
Yeah, there's no
So
copy.
yeah, do your
of it.
best.
Yeah.
That way, when you record your lead vocals too, you're in the same emotion. You're in the same mental state. It's the same moment you're recording. All that stuff does add up in the end. And as you notice, when you try to record another lead vocal on the same track a different day, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, that's how
Because
songs don't get so done.
all that feeling you had when you were recording the lead vocals originally is gone. That shit is gone, and you're never getting it back. So try your best to get it done the same day. Again, background vocals you could do any old day. It doesn't matter because they're in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly,
I agree,
honestly,
100%.
yeah, honestly, my thing has always been don't record unless you plan to finish.
That's a good rule of thumb too, man.
100%. Because maybe the next day you'll have a sore throat, and then your vocal tone is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm sick right now. I'm not recording at all.
Get better.
I
All right,
I
chills.
think as cliche as it sounds, it's like in the moment, in the vibe type thing, and how like how Jim said, it's like the emotions in that moment. So it's like you might not be able to capture that moment a week later, next day, etc. So it's like,
Yes.
yeah,
It's one of those things that you just learn with experience. As you have more musical experience, I've been doing this for a long time, and you just learn that even my ears mixing day to day is different. Anybody who's mixed
True.
knows that, bro. I could mix a song, let's do it the next day, and be like, "What the fuck is this
Yeah,
garbage?"
because your ears are now attuned to a different thing. Now
Yes.
you have fresh ears compared to the day before that you've been listening to fucking
Yes.
this certain genre for 4 hours straight, and now your ears are toned to that, and now you're losing all those frequencies that are now you have to switch over to the actual song you're mixing at that time.
Yes, that's 100%. So at the end of the day, like I said, there's just so many variables when it comes to recording, and just understanding those variables is half the battle. And for all the vocalists out there, mic position and technique is underrated. Take time to set your mic up properly. Use a flashlight so you can see inside the grill, and make sure that that diaphragm is lined up with your mouth perfectly. If it's off, you can get a too bright vocal, you can get too dark vocal, you can have all the clarity's gone. Really take time to make sure it's straight. If you have to use a ruler or a level or whatever, do it. Take the time to do that. Go ahead.
Don't you want the microphone like a 45-degree angle so the plosives are directly headed to the mic?
Depends on the vocals.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, there's like
fair.
sweet spots, I think, for everybody. You find your sweet spot with your mic, and I think it's just called like kneading the mic, where you position it correctly, get it like straight, like right in front of you.
I guess
all that.
I guess it depends on the type of vocal that you're trying to go for.
Yes, it depends on the vocal entirely, because some people's plosives plow right through the pop filter.
Right.
I think like a pretty good tip that I might add, especially for artists that are in here who do record their own vocals, is kind of make a mental little well thought out plan of what you want the song to sound like before you get into recording and putting out drums and stuff like that, and work towards that goal. It makes things a lot more fluid, and you'll honestly get better recordings that way, and just it'll just be more efficient.
Yeah. To add on to that, that's what you structure. At least to add on to that, like I feel when you say stuff like that, because I try to do that a lot of times. Because if you don't really feel the song, the vocals are never gonna really come out as good. Stuff like that. But
Yeah, it's all a mental thing.
It is. You're 100, bro. 16th is more than 100% right. Music is all mental. It's all mental. You guys can do everything you set out to do in music. The only reason you're not doing it right now is because you're in your head. Right, Mike? We've talked about this. You overthink. Everybody overthinks. We all do. Like we're creating art. It's personal,
Ultimate.
So we
yeah.
we all overthink, and that's the
know
barrier
that all
in
too
music.
well.
Yes, everybody knows. Everybody's gone through it. One day you think you're the greatest. The next day you're like, I should stop. I should never have done this.
So true.
So
why are you reading my mind right now?
music is all mental, bro. So that's a great tip. That's honestly one of the most important things. Is control your mind. You'll be able to, and that's the other thing too. When it comes to recording, like Mike, you mentioned if you had a bad voice day, right? An experienced artist will retire. Nope, I'm good for the day. I can't hit it. My voice is fucked today. An amateur artist will try to hammer through it, get frustrated for 2 hours, and get turned off. You see what I'm saying? That's where the
don't record and hate
force
it.
yourself.
Don't record and hate it.
Exactly.
Record it in the mindset that you love it.
And you guys have all been doing music long enough now to where you know when it's a good song and you're feeling it. You don't have to try; it just comes out.
Yeah, a great way to combat forcing yourself to like record is actually just learning a new skill in music. You know what I'm saying? So if you're having a bad recording day, fuck it. Tone up your skills on producing or engineering or some other shit.
It happens, and like the best thing to do is go through inspirations of like the type of shit you're doing. Like, listen to some more music, get some inspiration off of it, and maybe that'll spark something new. Maybe you get a new flow off of it. It's
100%.
Yeah.
So going back to compression on vocals, right? So like I said, it depends on the genre. So for rap, it's typically punchy. So I drive my compressors much harder in rap because I want it to have that compressed sound. versus like a singer-songwriter, I want it to be loose. I don't want it to be. I want to have the natural dynamics of the singer in there. Again, it all depends on the genre. So with that in mind, play around with your compressors. Mess with the attack and release. It's really like I said, that's the most important part. Good tip that I do, if you really get the feel of compressors, slam out, just crank the threshold, compress minus 20 dB, turn the attack and release all the way down, and then start turning them up. Just slam something with the compressor, so you can really hear what the compressor is doing. So you'll notice when you slam something and then you start slowing up the attack, you start opening the attack up, you'll hear all of a sudden it goes from the back of the mix to the front of the mix. So
that's what I was doing with the distortion last night when I was recording that one song, because Chris wanted distortion on my vocals, so I was messing around with it. And, I don't know how to use that, and then I figured it out. But yeah,
that's okay. You can actually can get distortion out of compression. And sometimes it's nice. Sometimes I prefer that over like a distortion plugin.
It's like a big thing. Like it's a big genre for that. Like screamo rap. I think they overcompress a lot for specifically that reason.
Yes, and again, like I said, try to split the load between multiple compressors at different stages. You'll find you'll get a much cleaner sound. And then another thing too, I don't know if you guys do parallel compression, but man, on hip hop, you don't need to compress your vocals super heavy if you could just run a parallel compression chain. You squash them in there and you blend it back in. Then you still have the dynamics, but you get the weight from the parallel compression.
That boy's speaking my love language.
Parallel compression, man. Well, for you specifically, you have a lot of dynamics, so I want to preserve dynamics with your voice.
I do want to talk to you at a later date, JPL, on parallel compression.
Cool. Yeah, we can do that.
But yeah, keep going. Go do anything.
Personally, I feel like this is a good place to stop. Like I said, I think you guys at this point should just go and mess around with compressors, tweak stuff, like slam it. Really, just twist all the knobs as hard as you can. Just figure out what they all do. Try different stuff.
Can you like explain really quick to the people that don't know what parallel compression is, like for the most part, like, and maybe a quick example?
Yeah. So yes. So there's two ways to do it. Sometimes you'll see compressors that have a mix knob. That's essentially what it's running a parallel chain. I think this one does. You guys can still see my plugins, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if any compressor has a mix knob, that'll basically make it parallel. The other way to do it is like, let's say you duplicate it. You can duplicate a signal, right? So let's say I duplicated this vocal. All right, boom. Now I got two, right? I take a compressor and I throw it on here and I slam the shit out of it. I just crush the fucking thing, much as possible. That's the most compression I could possibly get. You won't hear this, but you'll see it.
So that's what it is.
So yes, that's what it is.
So
you
like,
just slam the fuck out of it, and then you blend this in with the original, right? So I'll bring it down, and what I'll do is I'll raise it up until I feel like it's sitting just right. So it's not overpowering, but it's strengthening that lead vocal.
interesting.
Yeah, all it is you just blend the signal back in. That's it. Squash the fuck out of it and blend it. And the fun thing is you could do all types of stuff on this now. Now you could add like a flanger or something. You get creative with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Another thing I might add, slamming it is a very important step, or else you're gonna get some phasing issues.
Yes, and also things like this help you achieve overall mix loudness as well. So you can get your mixes to sound much louder without actually hitting. You get a lot of perceived loudness, I should say, out of it. So it won't be hitting any higher on the meter, but it'll sound a lot louder. Loudness is about density, so a lot of this like parallel compression will add density to a sound. It doesn't necessarily, it's not going to hit much higher on the meter, but it's going to be a much thicker sound overall. So we perceive it to be louder.
Also, if you're hitting phasing issues with it, you could also go into specific EQ to that layer and knock out whatever is really fucking phasing. But that's,
yeah, so you could also set that to linear, and yes. But yeah, that's essentially what parallel compression is. And Yeah, if you got, I mean, look through
Um,
presets too. Sometimes there's some good presets.
yeah,
Check out
presets are that's like
just
the
to kind
ace
of
of
see
fucking
what they're
heat.
doing.
Yeah, then you
Just
can reverse engineer those.
Exactly, and just tweak it the way that you
exactly.
want, like do increments by increments.
Like I think my main tip again. So just to recap, the most important setting, in my opinion, on a compressor is the release. That's how you make it feel stylistic and musical. Um, Always A and B. So when you think you're done compressing, turn it off, bypass it, try to match the volume. So when you bypass it, the volume doesn't change. You'll just hear the compression, right? So you want to try to volume match with that. Go in and out, play with it a little bit, see if you actually did something better, or if it doesn't need to be compressed. But volume matching is an important thing with compression. A little goes a long way, and whenever you can, split the load. Have a few compressors doing the job of one compressor.
All right, so when's the next
Like,
AES convention that you're speaking at?
Uh, I don't think I'm a member.
No, dude, dude, great job. Holy shit.
I
Thanks,
think
man.
you definitely need to do like the compression class part 2 for.
Yes, I actually I'm already thinking about that because I know like a lot of people in here are artists too, and you guys mix yourselves and all that. So I think the next one, the follow up class, I'll have you
EQ?
guys, y'all have you guys stream stuff and show me your compressor settings,
That's cool.
and we can go through there, and I can have you twist the knobs, and I'll guide you.
That's cool. Actually, that's a good idea.
I think take some time to familiarize yourself, and don't be afraid. Like I said, don't. Who gives a fuck about the numbers? Don't pay attention to the numbers. I couldn't tell you what any compressor setting is on anything in this song.
There's no
I don't
wrong
pay
answer.
attention.
Unless it's
Nope, just
completely
listen.
wrong, then there is a wrong answer.
You'll hear it. Yeah, you'll hear it.
Exactly.
Again, mixing is all about using your ears. Take your eyes out if you have to. When if you grab the attack knob, close your eyes and start moving your mouse.
Yeah. If
Take
it
your eyes out
sounds
of the
wrong, then it
equation.
is wrong.
Right. Exactly. And if it sounds good, it's good. It's
Exactly.
right.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
no wrong answer.
It's
Yeah, it really
subjective,
isn't.
man.
Yeah.
If we all get to point C, it doesn't matter if I took route A and you took route B. It doesn't matter.
Yes. You could skip route B and get to C in some other way. It's whatever
Exactly.
works.
You could take it or the route D that we didn't even know was there.
Yeah, exactly. You might do it
Right.
some other weird way that now it's like, oh shit, that's crazy. That's the way to do it now.
Right. So don't be afraid to, again, who gives a fuck about the numbers? Use your ears. Just listen. Play around with them. And then, for the follow-up one, I think I'll have you guys show me what you've done with them, and I will give you tips on that.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
I think I can get the next one set up, the follow-up for either next week or the week after.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do that.
You did a great job,
All
man. I will
Thanks,
say.
man.
You did a great
I
job.
was
That's
nervous.
adjourned.
I was very nervous, to be honest.
Really?
Mr. Reynolds, okay.
All right, let me stop the recording and I'll
Jim's
send it to
actually
you.
human and gets nervous. Yeah.
Yeah.